It's 9:01 a.m. and pursuant to KRS 61826 and OAG 20-05, the state of emergency regarding the threats to public health presented by the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and a municipal order. This workshop of the Paris City Commission is conducted by video conference. All city commission meetings may be attended by the public by viewing the video conference at the city's Facebook page online. Facebook Live, it's at https://www.facebook.com/City of Paris KY. Mayor.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Please, call meeting to order. This will be the roll call today. The Commissioner here. Yes. Commissioner Peru, anybody know about?
He was not able to make this meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks here. Commissioner Galvin.
Here.
Commissioner Allen Edwards.
Present.
Okay.
So you do have a quorum?
Quorum.
We do have a quorum.
Okay.
And so this workshop is to discuss the options that are laid before us in relationship to our utility payments and lack thereof coming in related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the ability to affect late payments and fees and disconnects. And joining us this morning is Todd O'Sholo, who is quite versed on this matter. And so, Todd, I'll turn it over to you to kind of walk us through what the governor's order says and what we can and can't do.
Sure, and I guess just to keep it as simple as possible, the governor's executive order basically rescinds what it had done previously. So I think it was May the 8th when the first order that came out saying, cities, you cannot disconnect for non-payment going forward until a future date. Well, then last month, or I guess still sometime in October, the governor rescinded that such that he is asking that municipal utilities, actually it covers all non-PSC jurisdictional utilities, but city utilities can start to disconnect after November the 6th for the non-payment of that window from May the 8th until that order came out October 25th. So that's one window that we're looking at, May the 8th to October 25th. What must a city utility do? Well, it must offer a payment plan for arrearages that are over $25. And that payment plan, there must be a minimum of a 6-month period to prepay that. So for example, if it's a $120 accrual, and the city wants to have only a 6-month payment plan, then those customers would have to pay $20 on top of their ongoing bill. So in November, if they accrue $120, they would have to pay $140, and that until they pay it off based on the city's payment plan. So that's the first thing is the city has to do a payment plan of a minimum of 6 months for that arrearage. And number 2, they have to take reasonable efforts to notify customers. And so we'll have to figure out how we're going to do that. And there are certain things that we have to do, or the governor's encouraging us to do, and it makes sense to me, things like telling them what the payment plan is, how they can pay, and sources of potential assistance if they can't pay. So those are really the 2 primary things that I think we're focused on here today. The moratorium on late payment penalties continues, at least until the end of the year. So we will not be able to assess late payment penalties for a while. And that's through the end of the year? Yes, that's correct.
Is that just related though from the May through October timeframe?
That's correct.
Yeah, so anything
Okay, so
after the October deadline, the payments and penalties can be assessed on that.
November and December are not included in that.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I talked to Cassie Sexton here, who knows a lot about the billing, and we talked about how some of this might go down, but certainly there are going to be challenges with the billing software. It's my understanding that this is all going to have to be done manually, which then I thought, okay, well, manually, how many customers we're talking about? Right, probably has updated numbers, but from what I heard yesterday, we're talking about 1,100 customers, 67 of which are commercial. So the governor's orders actually makes a distinction between residential, which you have to offer the payment plan, and commercial or non-residential, so it include industrial, you don't have to offer them a payment plan. You certainly can. You can go above and beyond. You can make it 12 months, you can make it 8 months, as long as it's above 6 months for residential customers. And then, from my perspective, another challenge that I noted is timing of all this. It's my understanding bills will go out on Friday. There's nothing that we can do between now and Friday to get this implemented for the billing system. So then we're looking at earliest time frame would be billings that go out November 30th with, for non-payment, possible disconnection, December 26th, 27th, in that time frame. I could understand why that might present some concerns. Now, apparently what Cynthiana has just done is notify their customers that they may have that same process, where they're gonna start getting this implemented in November and then possible disconnects, right around the holidays. So just to give you a few ideas on options that we want to talk about, do we want to apply it across the board, residential and non-residential, or just the residential gets the payment plans and otherwise? Talk about length of time that we want to provide for a payment plan. Is it going to be 6 months, or do we want to extend it out? I didn't even think about it until I saw Cynthiana's, but they've also broken it down into the amount that is owed, such that do we want to make that distinction?
But I guess it depends on how the billing complex that these are. If it's harder to keep up and manage that, I would definitely not have the breakdown of it, just have a longer period for all. But if it's easier to break it down, do it that way. I just depends on looking at Brad, because Brad would know the numbers on.
Well, Cassie would definitely know too, and not to say that the billing system is antiquated, but it is. Well, some of the issues though go back to kind of the software company in itself, in that sometimes they don't necessarily understand what we need, and it takes them forever to kind of develop something that we need. So this report that I've been working on that I summarized, it took them 2 months to build that.
Okay.
So I think Cassie's probably the better, source on that part there. Obviously, we can dump stuff into Excel and convert it over and do some different things outside of the billing program. But that's the level of complication I'm not sure what would do. I mean, I'm not gonna say we can do whatever, but if the software system can't do it, we can dump stuff out into Excel and, like what we've been doing over the last month and a half, manipulate the data and do some calculations. So if there's some payment plans or something like that that go over certain periods of time, obviously we can set something up in Excel and do that. But then I don't know how that would translate back into the billing system.
So currently, we have payment plans that we authorize periodically based on individual needs, and that is a set form, and they make a notation into the system for that, but the customer comes in and signs up on that form, so they have an understanding of what that payment plan is, they agree to it. But it is a manual entry, and so when the utility representative pulls up that screen, somebody makes a payment on that, there's a notation up there that says what, it might say that this customer's not allowed to make checks because they have bounced so many checks, and they are required to make X number of dollars per month. And so that's on the screen that the customer representative sees on the dashboard for that account. So there's ways to enter into that. But as a lineup, Brad's correct. And now Cassie has reached out to the company to see if what options exist by building into another line item or an account item, much like we did when we established the water meter fee. And so there, and so there is, it is it's kind of a legacy system that is in place that isn't, it's not a, what I call WYSIWYG, but what you see is what you get. It's, it is a little bit more complicated than that. But so we just right now don't have a good sense of how deep we can build those reports.
Would it make sense for us to anticipate, perhaps, because we're already down a person in the office, having somebody temporary assigned to working on that in the future, for us to think about that we may be looking at having a temporary temporary staff person for?
Well, we have that option already with DG, that she is our floater that fills in them there, and that's why we didn't fill that position back, because she does cover on heavy days over there, so we already have that opportunity for her to move over, and she was trained on that system to be able to assist there.
What about typically 100 or so people are late or don't pay each, what about the people before May 8th that had outstanding balances? Are they exempt from this, or can we, not that I want to cut them off immediately, but
Right.
what about that group of 180?
So the accounts with past due balances that date prior to May the 8th, you don't have to set up on a payment plan. You can now then put that on the bill, the full amount on the bill, should you choose to do so. And then if they don't pay, then that's a disconnect. Now, whether that starts to get more problematic for the staff that has to actually implement that, and whether it'd be easier for them just to take the entire past due balance.
And divide it out.
Yeah. But technically, you can make that distinction between the past due before May 8th and then between May 8th and October 25th.
Do we know how many of those customers we have?
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, prior to May 8th, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, generally, as Mike said, that we had, we roughly have about 100, 120. It fluctuates on a monthly basis. But I would say that those that are doing that also had, in this time frame that is covered, so I don't think we could just discount them out because they had that balance beforehand. You could separate the balance out, but they're still gonna be covered in the other, and from May, going from May. So I would think that you would look at it and just include the total outstanding in any payment plan.
Probably be cleaner, because those people probably are also late during
Right.
COVID, so.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we would probably all agree when you look at some of the accounts that some of these people have special concerns and issues, like there might be some individuals that had a business that closed. So their balance from the business rolled into their individual account, so, and then there's some other issues, as well too, but yeah, we can probably get that number down to that prior to May 8th as far as who might be the issues, and then who probably just, were kind of lingering around and then COVID hit that would, to some extent fall within this proposal that we've got.
So it's 12 months the max then?
No, you can do any, for payment plans, you could choose to do any.
Well, the PSC came out and said not no more than 24. The governor's order didn't really correct to say onto that. I will tell you that in some of the research that I've done, I know Madisonville is doing a flat 12-month. They're not doing what Cynthiana did.
Here.
They're not they're just putting everybody on a flat 12-month. I've seen or have heard, not seen anything in writing beyond Cynthiana and Madisonville's, but I've heard from some others that they're doing some hybrids. Some of them are structuring it based on balance, like Cynthiana is doing. I've not saying that there aren't any communities out there that may be doing more than 12 months. I have not heard of a community at this point that's doing more than 12 months.
I'd just say whatever the complexity, if it's difficult for management of the software, if it gives us a headache to do the here, I'd say just do the 12-month and do it like I said, mass way like that. Just if billing purposes are easier that way, and the fact that our software does not comply. It becomes a manual job each week to kind of figure out all these each time. Maybe the 12 months easier, I don't know, I'm not inside the software, but.
And to that point is that if you did do that, the longer you take it out, the more that they're going to have that ongoing issue of trying to keep up with it also.
So historically, those people who have been in the arrearage, what's been their pay rate? What's been the return rate of the paying bill?
They're billing full. That 100 or so that go out, that are on the cutoff each month, usually once they get that cutoff notice, majority of them come in and pay. that even if they don't pay in full, they will pay a percentage, and we try to collect at least $100 or 50% of the outstanding balance each month on that, to work with them. Sadly, those that continue to do that, and even though we tried to educate them, is that over the course of the year, they're paying an extra month of utility payments because they wait until, they're on the penalties and late fees, because they wait on that. But, no, Mike, I know that in my short term, that's kind of.
Kind of the way, it's kind of sad because, you tell people that, that bill's due on the 15th, but and Mayor, you remember this, when you were city manager, I mean, you set up the promissory note thing, but
Yeah.
they'd come in on the 26th or 27th and say, I don't have the money. I was like, look, you need to come in before then, and we'll work with you. And we work with just about everybody we did work with anybody that, or I have personally, and Mayor, I know you did too, that could, but for some reason, they won't even help themselves. They won't even come in and ask. They just kind of go away, but I don't know of anybody we haven't worked with. It's just getting the message out, and Stan, you see that too, don't you, with the well?
Well.
But, I mean, so the people that we work, is it 50% or 60%? Can you kind of estimate if a payment plan is working?
How many go in default on their payment plan? It's a small percentage that I've experienced when we've had that, and we've reworked a couple of them and been as much as possible. But I don't have a hard number on that because it is flexible. But I would say that in my experience, it's probably less than 20% that default on their payment plan.
And so how long usually is the payment plan for most people?
It depends on the amount that's due.
So it's like a tiered?
Yeah, and so it's on the individual account, and so we
Yeah, and they'll
we
do
set it up and
different-
try to.
Different things that, in the past, we've had policies, you get a note from your doctor, and it says, it's medically necessary that you have electricity, and you don't get cut off. Now, whether that's doing them a favor or not, that, the balance keeps building, and they don't get cut off, and they'd agreed to pay $50 a month. Well, then the bill gets higher, and they comes to where they can't pay that. And what I found is, instead of coming in and trying to work with, they'll just move. And leave and don't even contact us to turn it off. Well, then, either it's the landlord or that person's name that utilities keeps running, and it goes another 30 days, when they're not even there. So it's not, and that's what I see the most of. They get in a bind, and instead of coming in and trying to work it out or pay anything, they just, overnight leave and go to a different location and leave that bill, where the bill keeps on ticking, and then the balance keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Well, perhaps coming in may be the issue. Could we set up something where a person wouldn't have to come in, but they would be able to talk with us without having to physically come in?
Oh, yeah, they can call, they can do that over the phone
Okay,
now
so-
too. Now, we do ask for them to sign on the thing, but, that was in place, the mayor Plummer, who was city manager, put into asking them to physically sign something, because there's, I guess, the paper trail there, that they have some ownership that way, I guess is what the thought
So
process
we could
is.
do electronic sign.
If they would have
Well, we
capabilities, I think.
get in the thing. I called in there and told them to turn it off,
Yeah.
and they's like, well, we don't have any record of it.
Right.
And so that's why we went to physically somebody coming in and doing a cutoff order to stop the bill on that day, because it's amazing how they straggle on, and a few days can add up.
When you get them to sign that note, they won't have to pay it. Don't sign it. Yeah. Try to push it on out as far as they could.
A couple of comments. After yesterday's meeting, and one of the things that we've already talked about is, the 6 month versus 12 versus whatever we decide to do. I think I worry about if we take only 6 months. I don't think 6 months is an option. In some ways, what Cynthiana is doing, I guess I could almost agree with that, but then from a bookkeeping standpoint, or from our people's standpoint, then we've got all these different, you almost have to go back and look at each individual, memo post or whatever you want to call it on the screen and say, okay, Stan Galbraith gets 6 times $50 and Brad Oberlander gets 12 times $100 or whatever it might be. But out of the reports that Brad did yesterday, our people in the balances with 1,000 to 10,000, they average $1,500. And then in the $100 to $1,000, they average $306 each. And then those that with less than $100, and there's 554 of those, they're $47. So that's why I think we need to personally, I think we need to extend it more than 6 months. Is it 12? Is it whatever number, or do we go on some hybrid 6, 12, 18? Because there is no way this 49 customers that owe us an average of $1,500 are going to be able to do it in a 6-month period. We just will turn them off now.
Yeah, I mean.
No, they're not going to do
No, I
it. They
totally
can't.
Is community action, are they gonna help with current bill, or are they gonna help with outstanding bill, or are they gonna?
I talked to Darren yesterday. Community Action, and there's been a letter that's come through Community Action, and they've gotten some money, I guess it's from the governor's office or someplace, but they're not only going to help with electric for the city, but they can also help with water and wastewater. So they're going to, our local Community Action Council up here is going to have some money for that. So that's another source. And that's in combination with, they already have a program through Kentucky Utilities called Winter Care, and then they got one through
The state.
Columbia Gas and what have you, it's called LIHEAP, and it's for low-income housing and things of that nature. So this other pot of money that they've got is in addition to these.
The LIHEAP is a state program.
Yeah.
The low-income heating assistance
Yeah,
program.
whatever, yes,
Yeah.
it's an acronym for.
So Cassie has spoken with Community Action on, I think she told me Monday, when we were having this conversation yesterday, yeah. Monday or end of last week, and asked what additional information that they need. All they need to access that for Community Action is a copy of their current bill. So any member of the community can go in, if they meet those certain qualifications to participate in the program, can take a copy of their bill and go to Community Action, and they have funding, as Commissioner Galbraith noted. What we find though, and Commissioner Galbraith, you can speak to this from the wells also, is that even though they have that money available, they're not getting a lot of access, or people coming in and accessing those funds for whatever reason, from personal reasons that they're not. And so even though we push it out and we try to promote it, we didn't see a lot of that first round of funding, that extra funding that they had, come through, at least not on our side. And so I don't know, and I know there was times, this summer, when Commissioner Garland, the chairman of the well, there wasn't hardly anybody coming in and asking for some assistance at times.
And I volunteer every Thursday at the well, and we help people with rent, utility subsidies, and things of that nature. And we're open 4 hours every Thursday. And I want to say we had weeks in April, May, and June, we didn't have anybody come in. Now, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been averaging about 10 people in a 4-hour period coming in. And we're beginning to see some rather large balances. Now, we're helping people with utilities and rent. And there are some people on rent that we've seen, and then what we do is we call the landlords and talk with the landlords. We'll help Stan Galbraith, we'll help him with his rent. We'll help you pay 1 month, or we'll help you this. But we have to get from Brad, who's my landlord, he has to say, I'm not gonna throw them out. I won't evict them. So, and then we'll pay that month in order for them to work, for me to work something out with Brad. So, and we try to do that same thing here with, particularly with the city. I always come down and either see Jenny or Cassie or DG or whoever's working in the window and say, okay, here's what we can help with. How's this gonna help them? So then I go back downstairs there and tell them, here's your deal, we're gonna help you with X. So there is resources, but I have talked with Community Action, as Darren said, in the past. And last spring, I got a call, and it was about the middle of April, and they said, please send us as many people as you can, because we still have money, and this program is only open until April the 30th, and then if we don't, like the federal government, if we don't spend it, you lose it. And they were gonna lose the money, and we tried to send as many people up there as possible, and then after April was over with, I talked to Tracy Woosley up there, and I said, Tracy, we sent X number of people up there, how many did you see? And she said, tell me like one or two, and she said, because all they had to do is call an 800 number, and they would tell them exactly what to bring for these programs.
Well,
Yeah, that's exactly what we're forced to do here, is to show them those potential assistant programs with them as contact.
First option.
Yeah, and we definitely put them on that when we contact them with this letter, like we saw Cynthia send out, that's this information, would be like, oh, and all those programs will be there, so once they get there, that's when they get educated on it. I mean, we know where it's at, we can only lead them to that destination, and then that's when you all educate people that need that special assistance, which will, obviously see the need is there right now.
Now, can
Well, I think
we
you
send
can
directly
send
the
it
bill
to-
to the community action? Send, download your outstanding and send it to them, so this is what we got, what can you help with?
well, like I say, full-time, until you're ready to cut them off,
Right.
because right now, they're really not concerned. You get a notice out, I'm ready to get cut off. Now I'm scrambling, trying to find.
Yeah.
What am I
I
gonna do?
mean,
Well, you're gonna be you're gonna be flooded.
I mean,
total the
you know,
outstanding, send it to community action, say, hey, y'all wanna cut the middleman out, just pay us.
Yeah.
I mean,
You only help so many.
I want to say, late last month, we had a client come in, and they owed $692.71. That was their outstanding balance with the city. They did go up to Community Action. Community Action paid $600 of that bill. She came back to, well, we paid $92.71. So, I mean, that was the kind of money that was out there last month and earlier this month. I mean, that goes a long, long way.
Yeah.
But they got the notice saying everything was gonna be cut off.
Right, and that's when
And
we're
that's
starting to
when-
see in
that's when you
people's
start
eyes.
Yes, and they came in after we sent one, I say, that little sub-letter that we had in our monthly bill that said, hey, you gotta be thinking about this, and, you need to be making arrangements. And then that's when they came in, and I guess it really started thinking about it. But they had, they had circumstances. They had been laid off at COVID, they had worked, laid off, now they're starting back, so, but again,
And again, I think we need to make it as easy as possible for Cassie as well as whoever it is, because 6
Exactly.
months for somebody could be $400, 6 months for somebody else could be $20.
kind of like car payments at the bank. I need 36 months, and Wallace needs 24 months to make the same, to borrow the same amount of money. You tell me 24 months, I just pick up my car now. I can't do it. It won't take me long. I can't do it. So anyway,
But that's what you're gonna find, I've sat down with them before, that, I don't have a job, I have no income, I've got 3 kids at home, and you're gonna turn my electric off.
there's all kinds of, I know, it's unbelievable sometimes.
So I guess, from standpoint of, do we want to look at similar to what Cynthiana has done, or do we want to do a pay arrangement that is a set month for everybody, and you can pay it off early if you choose to, as to which direction?
I'm kind of torn because I think giving somebody, say we went with 18 months, and they have a balance of $200, I think that they would drag out that 18 months.
Right.
But if you have a substantial amount, quite naturally, you need more time. So I'm kind of toward, I don't want Cassie and the staff to have to do more work, unnecessary work, but I also don't want to let this drag on and on and on.
Prolong that,
Yeah.
and
What-
what's that need to be prolonged, yeah.
A third option, and correct me, Todd, if I'm overthinking this, but would a third option also be to establish a set, say, 10-month, 12-month, whatever, for everybody? And then those that get to the end of that have successfully met that you could enter into another payment plan for any remaining, if they've been diligent, and they get to that last part and they can't make it or something. I don't know how that would work, or you could look at it on an individual basis. If they make a couple of payments on time, and then you could extend it out, give them more time.
See, I'm more for
Yeah.
like, having, maybe 9 months for balances under $500, and then anything over that, just real easy, you have to 18 months. But having any other kinds of structure just makes it really hard for them to do it, but, I just don't think that if you owe, 500 or less,
Right.
that if you give me 24 months or 18 months or whatever, that I would be in a hurry to pay that off any sooner.
Are you able to forgive any? Is that-
Yeah, I mean, we can do incentives to pay it off sooner. And you can do incentive, you pay it off by January 1, we'll take 20% off. Yeah, I mean, I'm all about that. I mean, you do that, you may have quite a few of those bigger ones that are just sitting on, because they didn't have to, and then, well, I've got it, but I don't want to. I mean, you incentivize that, whatever percentage that is, you can say, I'll give you 15% off, you pay it by January 1. You may have a big influx of that, which gets a lot of bleeding stop immediately.
You make 11 payments, I'll give you your 12th. You don't have to make 12, but you have to pay your first 11, or some incentive out there that'll do this. Or do you, like you say, is it a discount? How do you discount it, or do you do the waiver at the end of it or something? But you can't get blood out of a turnip, that's for sure.
And that would be applied across the board, because
Yeah.
anybody, if you hear that you're gonna have a savings, most of us are gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't care what the savings is, as long as I'm gonna get a savings.
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure out.
I'd almost do that right up front and say you pay the full amount within, after that first notice, because they get by January 1, or whatever the number date is, if we decide, you get a percentage off, so it does get us to a minimal number pretty quick.
Try to do it annually.
Yeah.
Kind of like the tax bills, where you pay it by a
So a certain date, you get a percentage.
And then and if you can't, you go ahead and put on.
Is that
payment.
an eligible?
Yeah, it is. In fact, KLC proposed something like that in a letter a month or two ago, just saying, hey, this is coming. And so there may be avenues where you can credit accounts
So
based on
tax,
certain
yeah.
factors, so.
Yeah, property tax, same thing, you pay it ahead, you get 2% off.
You get 2% off.
I mean, I know it's less, but you know it's coming. Yeah.
So that's a little bit separate from outside of the payment plan.
Correct.
But it could be an option as income. So is there a threshold that we want to look at, say $250 and less, is you have 6 months to pay? I mean, similar to what?
I think that pay structure there is pretty reasonable, unless you all do like Anna said, a two-tiered one, where it's just a certain amount cut off, you pay it 6 months, you pay the other in 12 or 18 and 9, whatever it was.
I think we need to find out what community action's gonna pay. You need to find out what their scale and range is.
What's that?
Find out what community action's gonna pay.
Yeah, because they can pay up, in some of these programs, they can pay up to a maximum of, like I say, they paid up $600.
Yeah, so what I saw yesterday is, I guess it was a previous program that they have an application for on their website, up to $1,000, and it goes through about 8 or 10 different things. How much for rent, how much for water, how much for sewer, how much for electric, how much for gas, and a few other things. But the cap was $1,000. Based on the $15 million that was just put into the utility fund, that's gonna be filtered through community action as well. And it's my understanding, I read something yesterday that said that up to $500 would be applied for water and up to $200 for electric. I honestly don't know, because obviously electric bills are always higher than water. I don't know the distinction. I was kind of hoping to verify that through somebody at community action or some way. The other thing I saw in that was that in order to apply, you had to meet a financial threshold and be, I think it was 200% of the poverty, the federal poverty line.
Right.
So if you had a household income that was above that 200%, so roughly $30,000 for a one-member household, something like 45,000 for a 3 or 4 member. So there is that aspect of it that may not apply. But again, I saw this online and it hadn't been finalized from what I could tell. There wasn't a specific application for this new money. I presume that they're doing that, and I'm presuming that Community Action of Kentucky for this area would have that information relatively soon. I would hope.
That's what I was hoping, the same thing, Todd, because I got an email yesterday from a lady who works at Community Action and never met her personally, but we talked Zoom calls and things like that. And I asked her, I said, where is your chart? Because upstairs in the Wells office up there, I have an old chart from I think it was last January or something, it was for the year 2019. But it down this side, it told you, and it had each column, it had light heat, winter care, all these winterization programs, and then on this side, it had income levels and household size. But amazingly, every program, if I was a single parent living by myself, under this program, I could have $1 amount. Under another program, it was a different dollar amount, so there was no set program for family size. You had to look across the top, and then you had to find them here, and you had to come down, and this is what they qualified for. So it was
And that
it's not an easy program.
It's not, and that may be one reason actually the light heat might be why there's a less amount for electric utilities in this new fund.
Right.
Because the light heat is still available.
Yes.
And then there's not an equivalent program for water utilities out there.
Yeah, because either light heat or winter care, last year, they would pay $88 a month it would be like January, February, March, and then it would go like July, August, September, or something like that. So it was in the cold months, and then, and vice versa, and that may have been through winter care or something to where you could get different programs, but it would help you to tell you, if you qualified, you got it for 6 months, and they just credit $88 every month, and then one of those other programs was a little over $100 a month for so many months that it would pay. But again, you had to go up there, you had to call an 800 number, you had to take this information to see if you qualified.
So what we know is that there are resources out there
Yeah.
for citizens.
Yes.
And so, what we have to do is to figure out, how we can best, recoup the losses that we have right now, in the most timely fashion. And, we can't, we know that there are resources out there, that's the bottom line for me. So what we have to do is decide how many months we want to give people the opportunity to repay. And, I get concerned about allowing it to go on for a very long time, because if the resources are here now, you've got to force people to go get those resources as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the resources will dry up after a certain time, and we'll all be in the same boat as we are in now. So I say, let's look at a time frame, no more than a year, and maybe having it broken in half for X amount of arrearage, and then anything over that, go forward. And I do like the fact that if you incentivize people, that's a really good thing. If we could figure out a way, whether we want to, how we want to call it a discount, by 11 payments, your 12 payments free, or pay, 5 payments and your 6th payment is free, or say up front, we'll give you a 10% discount or whatever. But I like that. So for me, let's just decide on a time frame and an incentive.
To your point in relationship to timing, very appropriate, because if you're looking at realistically starting a program in January, by the timing as we said today, if you go in 18 months, you are now taking 2.5 fiscal years you're taking 2 fiscal years to finish up 6 months of this fiscal year and all of next fiscal year to recoup something that happened in the current fiscal year. So effectively 2.5 year time lag there on getting, so I would encourage you to consider things that stay within, that don't go beyond a 12-month period of, which would be halfway into the next fiscal year, for revenue standpoint.
I mean, I know I don't have a vote on this, I kinda like the amnesty part, let's say, you know, X% discount if you pay by January 1st. I kinda like that too, Darren, but you know, to me, I kinda circled 9 months as far as, I think 6 months might be too quick, I think 12 months is too long. If you can get something maybe within the 9 month, and then push the heck out of community action council and the well, and I don't know if we can make links on the website.
We have shared that through our social media.
Yes, you can, I mean, if you, community action's there, but it all
Is there a
directs you to a
place
phone
on our
number.
bill
So-
that
Yeah.
replaces-
Yeah.
Yes.
We put,
You
well, we
search
don't
community
have
action, and then you check
we
Bourbon
can put
County,
there
it
again.
just
We
gives you a
did,
phone number to call
a
directly.
couple months
So,
ago.
I mean, you really can't do anything online.
Your office
We got
is
limited
full.
characters,
At least it's
but we can always,
I mean, we just
can
gotta push
add-
people to get up. That's why I thought if we could contact them and say, hey, look, we've got all the data of all these bills that are owed. You all got technology, how much money you got, we'll shoot you how many bills we got and what people owe, and you tell us how much money you're gonna pay towards it, and cut all the other stuff out, do it directly.
Yeah, I don't think I think there's some federal guidelines on how they
Who
do
can
that. but-
initiate it.
Right, but Commissioner Brooks, to your point, that, when we put something out, we can include that as an attachment, it didn't have to actually be on the bill. But what we did find is when we did that last time, we had a lot of
Yeah,
people
but
that
people
actually
call.
just didn't even look at that second page. Yeah, they just opened up their bill, and even though we had the attachment in there in the letter, now some did, but some didn't. I think Commissioner Galvin told me somebody came into the well that had, both just handed it to them, and they didn't even realize there was a second page, type
Never
that
even,
letter.
they never even looked at the second page because it was still in the envelope, still folded together. And I said, well, I don't need it, and she said, what's that?
Well, I
I
think
said,
you do it a different color or something, instead of doing white. I mean,
It's just-
you do it in yellow
Yeah.
or another color, I'm gonna read it.
Yeah, you
because
get, put a red one in.
Banking,
there.
yeah, banking, it comes out in different colors.
Well,
When you get to this other color, it's like, oh,
But the other side is we can mail it separate from the bill
Yeah.
with an urgent, or important, or something on the outside of, on the envelope to draw people's attention.
Because it sounds like if they go to community action, you said they have at least $600 for that one deal.
Yeah.
I mean, so it seems like $500 to $600, or 500 sounds like it's kind of
The threshold.
a threshold.
It depends on the volume coming in, I mean, you get 75 people, it's.
Well, but I'm just saying, I mean,
Right.
that's one, so I think that the opportunity is there, I think if we just like say, you get different color involved and say, these resources are available. Try these folks, and then we'll work with them, like say, an amnesty, case 5 or whatever it is.
It used to be the requirement was you had to take the past due notice up there, and it sounds like now it's
just
a
the
copy of
bill.
the current bill.
Yeah.
because, yes,
Because there's
because,
no past due notices going out right now.
That was they stuck to that policy,
Yeah.
and I don't care who you were, if you didn't have it,
Yeah.
but with the current bill, everybody's got balance carried forward, and it has a number, so.
Right.
I mean, you can say, okay, well, and then you didn't pay that, then did you? No. So, there's quote your past due amount.
so they have the ability to come in here and say, I need a copy of my bill, and they can get that.
They can get a printout or the,
Yeah.
and
That's
what
something
Cassie-
that will be acceptable at community action.
That's what-
Because
yeah,
our bills come
Cassie-
from another source, so.
Cassie, yeah, they take their current bill, that's what Cassie told me, that she had a conversation with
Okay.
Community Action.
I wonder, if they're taking their current bill, is there a way to make sure on that current bill that we have the whole total outstanding amount? Because maybe only 150 is due after we set up this payment plan, but they have staggered this out another 9, 12 months, such that the total amount is $500 that would be.
It's on there now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because otherwise,
Oh,
community
oh,
action might
it's
not
there.
pay the full amount, they might just pay the lesser amount.
But again, the people at the window, Jenny or Cassie or whoever, DG, whoever's working the window, they do have a report that will give you current 30, 60, 90 plus.
Gotcha.
So it'll break down the total due, let's say $300, and it'll give it to you 50, 50, you know, 250 or whatever, 200.
Sure.
It'll tell you exactly what it is.
Okay.
But, you know, on your bill that you get, even on your delinquency notice, it just tells you you're delinquent X number of dollars. You got no idea whether it's 1 month or
Sure, sure.
how far it goes back.
Yeah. And that's why I was thinking, actually, I mean, we want to be able to show two numbers, how much is actually due this
Yeah.
month,
Yeah,
and then how much the
current
total
is-
amount
yeah, and
outstanding.
it shows that on our bill as it goes out now.
With these resources out here, why don't people either come and take advantage of it?
Johnny, Mayor, that's a $64,000 question.
I figure if it's out there, then everybody needs running for it.
Well, I think some of it is just personal pride. You don't want to admit. I think some folks may not qualify. They're falling into it, but they have the financial resources. It's just the way they budget their money. And so they may not qualify from an income base, and so they're not good budgeters of their money, and so then they get behind or they get other bills and they try to play. So I don't think there's a one answer that's there. And then some have gone and burned bridges at those places that they've used them so many times
Yeah.
that they may not qualify from there, so.
That was my question, how many times you would qualify in
We don't have a
Next year.
database of landlords, do we? Because it would just be great to inform landlords to inform your tenants that these things are available for you.
No, we don't have a good, I mean, we could look through our business licenses to see how we might be able to pull something from that standpoint, but I.
PBA, you could go to
Yeah, Tim,
PBA or
probably
someplace like that that would list, you know.
It's listed by property, but.
But then you have to coordinate that with the location.
We went through this before with like a Section 8, a requirement for Section 8 for landlords to get their money is that the property has to have active utility.
That's right.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are already trying to make sure.
Well, that's to initially to qualify, but you don't always necessarily know if you're.
Yes, until the inspection comes
Yeah.
and then, I mean, he takes the light bulb with him.
So maybe work with Section 8 to send out a notice to, because at least we know that they have
They would
list
have
of
it.
landlords, to encourage them to, encourage their tenants to avail themselves of the resources that are available.
So community action's got so much money, if they don't use it, they have to turn it back in.
Right, yeah, they get buckets of money, and it can only be, like Columbia Gas, they got Columbia Gas money. It won't go to KU, it won't go to the city, it's only for Columbia Gas. Then there's only money in this lackey, it's only for, you know, certain heating
Yeah,
costs.
the CARES Act allocated 15 million
Yeah.
for that, but they have another account that they'll buy firewood or heating oil out of that account.
Yeah.
So that seems like a marketing thing that's not under our purview, but really under theirs, because there ought to be a way that you can get this information out to people, in a simple format as quickly as possible so they would know. I mean, there should be some place that people know that you can go here and get this information in simple terms.
We do it live before with
Let me ask you a question. Community actions, they got this money, can't they call us and say, hey, we got some money here,
And they-
let's pay some utility bills or whatever?
No, because
Can't they do that?
no, under the federal guidelines, as I understand them, they have to have the person who has the account has to come in and physically request, because they have to make sure that they meet certain guidelines and the stipulations on it.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of initiation outside of community action.
Yeah, we just couldn't call up community action and say, hey, right now, our outstanding utility payments is, it's $400,000, and they just
Oh,
run.
That would really cut government bureaucracy.
It sure would.
But they did call up here in April about the time, I guess they talked to you, Stan, when they said, hey, this program's coming to an end,
Right.
and just direct anybody down here.
I mean, I guess the avenues of informing citizens that have these is just, one, through their bill, their address we have, it's an additional bill, like in our red cards. When I get a red card, I'm like, oh, It's usually a car salesman or something. But it does alarm me a little bit, you're more apt to open it. Social media, obviously, put it on our Facebook page, put it on our webpage, where you have access to these on a downlink, and just, that's what we can do. I think we're overthinking it, when if they're not willing to help themselves, we can only go so far. It's like taking a horse to the water trough, they're only gonna go if they're thirsty.
So, again, as this would take action in a regular commission meeting to establish a program, and we would do that today, but for our next commission meeting on the 10th of November, what threshold? I think I'm hearing that 500 and below would be 6 months, and then 501 and up is 9 months, 12 months? 9 months?
I think that's the end of this fiscal year, June 30th.
Well, that's only gonna get you 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Well, then you're not starting it today. If you would only be starting in January, so that would, for 10, if we do a 10 is easier for the calculation of the number divisional
Well,
wise.
this is 10,
Yeah.
we can make it up.
Yeah. So five and less is 6 months, and then 501 and plus is 10 months.
10 months.
And you don't wanna put in
And then,
initial payment plan or eventual payment?
and if you pay in full by January the 15th, which would be the first day that we would actually have, to be able to get all this out.
in the cycle,
It would be in the cycle, then you would have a discount,
Yeah,
and at what percentage of a discount?
I guess we need to see what those numbers look like.
Well, we talked
Yeah,
about,
good.
I mean, you're doing a 5%, see what that number looks like.
Well,
What's
let me right now, we have about 400,000 outstanding, correct?
Yep.
We have about 450,000 in CARES that we got money in to pay for police and fire through CARES. So we have extra money, that money's going to pay for them, but the money that we budgeted for that other amount. So if you said that let's say we have about $500,000 pool of money, you did 10% discount, if everybody took advantage of it,
Be $6,000.
there, you're with.
Yeah.
Well, 10%.
But we also have
No, and I don't think you're gonna have that
120,000
big,
in
so-
late fees that we're not gonna collect.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
You're gonna have probably 10% take advantage of it, and that's probably what's around number.
but we also talked about just, canceling a payment. And that sometimes could just be real simple for people to see, well, if I pay this by this, then instead of having 9 payments, I have 8. And
So-
that's easy. And we don't have to do any calculations, it's just,
I can give both options, I'd rather have it up front. I like to pay it up front. That's just, honestly, talking from my perspective, someone's gonna give me a discount, it's gonna be a bigger chunk, I'll give it all to you, be done with it. That's me. Other people like say, well, I'd rather have it on the back end, you can do both. We can
No,
offer
no, I
both.
was saying, if you pay it by January 15th, then instead of paying, having 10 months of payments, you had 9 months of payment. You would skip 1 month. You still would have them pay.
Well, I'd almost say if you do pay 8 months in a row, that 9 months gone. That's what, I'd rather give it to them at the back end instead of the beginning.
Okay.
On that fact, because if you're gonna give them the benefit up front, well, if they miss one later on, you still gotta tap back on.
Well, so.
I think,
If I
that's
heard that right, it's
something
then
that I'm maybe.
Look.
I think what you do, you give them 1 month to use free whenever they wanna use it.
Give them a get out of jail card free, like Monopoly.
December's a busy month, so you don't have to pay December. so-
Bring that card in and say, I'm using my card this month. Okay, let me give you a card.
So if we did, make sure I'm understanding, so a discount, if you pay everything in full by January 15th, a 10% discount. If you go into a payment plan, whether it's 6 month or 10 month, the 2 payment plans you talked about, if you make your
First
payment,
five.
if you pay, well, and all these are that you have to pay your current month
You
on
have to stay
time.
current.
You have to stay current, which is paying by the 15th of the month. It's not by cutoff, it is by the 15th of the month, the current. If you make it timely of your first 5 payments, then your 6th month is forgiven. If you make your first 9, then your 10th month is
Yes,
forgiven.
I like that, I like both options.
So Stan, you're a banker and I owe $3,000. Will you loan me that 3 so I can pay the city at what, 2%?
Yeah. Well, it'd be 2.38.
Okay.
Okay, but hey, guess
But then I
what?
get a discount because I paid the whole thing off.
But you get it on the mortgage, and you can get a 30-year mortgage like at 2.47, so I mean, let's just extend it way out.
Well, we put it back on the banks to loan the money and then you get the discount, so then they'll pay down.
When you mortgage it, put on your taxes.
Yeah, write that off, yeah.
So just for understanding also is that, you know, this is something, and you have to pay your current bill, so we begin
right.
this. And so December bills go out, you get that, and I'll say I'm behind and I've got $500 outstanding plus my December bill. My December bill is $200. So I come in January 15th, I pay my December bill of $200, and I pay my total outstanding, I would get a 10% discount on that total amount due.
So you pay $450.
Yeah, so I pay on that. Then, if I wanted to go into payment plan using that same thing, over 6 months, I pay my January 15th, February 15th, March 15th, I pay all those on time. Then when I get to June to make my 6th payment, that would be forgiven because I've paid all my previous five on time.
Correct.
That's
And you
current,
still get the
current
same
plus your
benefit.
payment plan.
Theoretically,
Yes.
it's still $50.
It's always paying your current bill due on time by the 15th of the month. Plus one-sixth or 1/10 of your payment. Right.
Still, the best benefit is if they pay it up front, I want them to get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm big about getting the legal stop.
And we treat commercial and residential the same.
And you gotta think, if you went to community action and got your $200 toward whatever your $600 bill, that means all you have is $400. Wow, you saved a lot of money. Then it's gonna be
Yeah.
$360.
Yeah.
So you save now $240 toward what you had, and that's a big savings. I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers.
Is there,
No, that's not legal, it's more practical. Is there any difficulty in keeping track of 5 payments, 9 payments over that course in the billing system such that the staff will know, okay, we can wipe off this 1/6 amount in the 6th month, or we can
Have
wipe
to
off
be done on
10%?
paper and
Yeah,
Excel.
that would-
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
And
in Excel.
it manually.
It's gotta be done because-
a tag in that account system, so when they come in and sign up. Now, the other side of it is they would have to come in and sign up on it, so they would have the tracking documentation for that tied to it.
So, I mean, the way the executive order works out is it says default, so you have to give it to all customers, the payment plan. Now, this special benefit to ensure payment, either upfront or over the course, that's kind of outside the payment plan. So I don't have a problem legally if we require them to come in for that benefit. It just seems like it's gonna be an extra step. But no matter what, we're gonna have to figure out how to do this with billing.
Yeah.
Those 1,100 customers that are gonna be on this payment plan, we have to apply it whether they come in or not. And so that's just more.
We're just trying to give them incentive, is what we're trying to do here, give back, because I know it's hardship, as much influence we can give to pay consistently.
Sure.
At a point where they've got to fall behind or.
Yeah.
We get issues all the time, and I'm sure this will come up, that somebody's been paying on a bill that has John Doe's name on it, that's his name, but Jane Smith has been living there paying it for 30 years, and I know I'm getting in the weeds here a little bit, but there's a whole lot more than people realize out there that they've been paying on accounts and it's a different name. So, I mean, the utility account whose name it's in, is that who has to set the plan up?
They're the ones that are obligated for it. Even if
So-
somebody's paying on their behalf, it ultimately is.
Whoever the bills,
Yeah.
it should be responsible.
We run into it quite often, believe it or not, that
So in theory, if I am Jane Doe paying John Doe's bill, and this bill has gotten outrageous for me now, I could stop paying John Doe's bill and come down here and put the utilities in Jane Doe's.
Hey.
You can, but John will still have responsibility.
John's dead, honey. He's-
I get that.
He moved to sit down.
I get that, but it's still John's responsibility.
Yeah, it's still John's responsibility, but that's John, John's over here.
At that point, you.
But it happens,
Yeah.
quite a bit, that, grandkids or whatever will move in a place and keep the bill going, and till they get behind and then it's
Well, there'll still be a cutoff reconnection fee.
Right, yeah, if they're not making that, I mean, they're subject to
They're-
automatic, they're
they're-
not going to the standard.
But they might be legit and wanna keep on and do a plan, but they won't be able to though, will they?
Well, they have to
Well,
have said individual that
I mean-
is under, have to set it up with them. Or with us.
It wouldn't be any different than community action paying on behalf of somebody else, or the well coming up and paying. They come in and pay on that. This is what it's set up in the system under that account's name, but there's somebody else that's paying on their behalf. That would be the same way.
I think if it's in arrears and someone's willing to pay it, I don't care, really, just pay it. I mean, if they're saying I'm willing to be responsible for John's payments,
But if, you know, that person that's been responsible in the past now says, I'm not being responsible, it's ultimately the person whose name is in, and they're gonna get cut off.
Yeah, I was saying, because it's when they cut off.
Right.
So somebody's
That way,
line.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I can go
Right.
and put it in
Yeah,
my
right,
name,
my name.
and so,
All right.
typically usually in that situation, John owns the house, not Jamie. And John will still have it on the taxes at the end of the day.
Well, I can speak to personal experience. I had utilities that were in my father-in-law's name who died. Maybe this is an opportunity to give those people a chance to change it into their name. It was just because I didn't want to pay the deposit. I won't lie. I kept it, he died 20 years ago, and we left it in his name for 15 years.
that's what I'm talking about.
I was never in the rears.
Yeah.
But in a situation like this, I could have been, if my situation hadn't changed, maybe we give people the opportunity to take responsibility for the bill that they owe, but also get the utilities in the right name while we're connecting with these people.
And that's.
Because it wasn't that, I just didn't want to pay the deposit. I won't lie.
And I think
It
it
was
will
20 years
run
ago,
a year,
but-
those people.
You know, there's an opportunity to correct some information, we should take that chance.
That's what I'm talking about. 'Cause when I said he's dead, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I
Right.
didn't
Right.
Well, okay, say they do take ownership of that previous bill, but it's not in their name, but they wanna not pay the $50 changeover. Can you change it over, forgive the changeover fee and just keep on paying it, but change the name on the account?
You mean not pay them with a deposit?
Not pay the deposit, but they acquired what accrual bill is there.
Well, would you want to make that part of like?
I think you can make it
the
part
Yeah.
of the payment.
It's that, I would behoove to have that in there, so it makes it easier transition instead of
Or make it-
charging them that disconnect and reconnect, and then,
Well, what you would be doing is they would be agreeing that this past due bill is there.
yes.
And so therefore, it's not like you're having to have a deposit because you're gonna really get this money back
Correct.
here
Correct.
where you would not have gotten it if they decided they were just gonna quit. So,
And I think it does need to be in there, just to give them that opportunity, because even if they decide not to, and even if they do cancel and sign up, and pay the deposit, that is still gonna go on to the actual end mortgage of that home at some point, whether it's sold now or in 10 years or whatever. So it'll still be there, and hopefully it'll be good to go ahead and pay it, keep it, especially if they agree with it.
So we've got, for like these examples we're going over, we've got 90 people or customers that have not made a payment since May 6th, okay? However, when you sit there and start looking at the numbers, there's one person or one customer that has not made a payment since August of 2019. And they have a small balance, so it's probably like a water customer, because the monthly charge is like around $13, $14. But there's quite a few in this 90 count that it seems to be, going back to January of 2020, they have not made a payment since then, but they just have like a $30 or $12 charge. So I'm assuming that's probably like a water customer or something.
Yeah.
To that extent. So that's almost a lot to kind of make up that 90 that seem to have that balance. But then there are some people, that are up in that $1,500 range that haven't made payments since, February of 2020, and that kind of stuff. So I think we've probably got the information where we can sort and look at these and, probably get it down into and Cassie knows a lot about these particular customers and some of their situations, in that part, but, getting some of these things transferred over, or are they even an active account? I mean, if you haven't made a payment since August of 2019, is that really a, still an active account?
If it's cash, I guess, from that list, and just throwing this out there, is there a way to figure out, are these folks just not making the payment because they don't have to, or, because, like I say, they could have the money, but they're just not making the payment, holding on to it just to see what's.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Cassie's amazing how she knows who is who and
Right.
Yeah.
for the most, it's crazy how I guess you know these people by address and name and when they pay and how they pay.
Yeah, that's what I would think we would do is, probably when those one bills go out, is we get one master Excel spreadsheet kind of going, that would have some of those, notes kind of confidential part of it to say, okay, we know this person does this, or this person had done this person had a business, and we rolled the business into, their personal, so we can kind of have a spreadsheet that we could look at that would track some of those.
Can we see that list without the names on it?
Yeah.
So, on the window in there, I don't pay the bills, so you obviously have can we post the community action contact information? So it is posted on there?
It's not posted currently, but we can, but they do give that information when they come to, or they call in, they give that information if people are having trouble. They have that personal, they have that information there at the desk and they hang it out.
And maybe even have cards that, when somebody comes in to pay, that we give to them, but at least have it posted there in a different color, other than white. So it shows up. Fuchsia is the color people look at.
Well, I was
so-
saying green, we just done signs with green.
Not threatening, but it's colored.
Everybody
Yeah,
knows
probably
about
would be
masks.
something you would do as part of the
Masks,
masks.
we've got to do different colors.
And the well that's just kind of up there readily available, like business cards.
Yeah, so, have that kind of, because if we're gonna get people, and we need to start doing that now, we're gonna get people to start thinking about paying, we need to give them as many resources as possible, as often, because, they'll throw it away and what have you, but we do.
Give office space if they need.
Because, yeah, right. What we have done down at the well before is, and I call it again, it was like a cheat sheet that had light heat, winter care, winterization, all that across the top and down the bottom, and it had, of course, it's through community action. We just give the customer this because we had no idea we knew how many, because of their application with us, they would tell us they've got 4 people in the family, but then we don't know their income, because we never ask them, we just ask them what their monthly income is. Then across the bottom, we had no idea what category they would fall in and whether they could qualify. So we would just give them that with the number on it, let them, basically they're on their own. Okay?
Go figure it out.
We feel like we have done our part as volunteers down there and then surprisingly Tracy and some of them would, end up calling and things like that, so.
Couple more questions on my end. Do we have any accounts that are past due less than $25?
Yeah.
Do we want to have a different setup? We could require them to pay $24 for that during a payment plan, or we could just put everybody on the same plan.
$125?
Less than $25, yeah. Do you all have a preference?
I would,
We can't screw around with it. Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
would just say that.
Live, isn't it?
It sure is.
I think those that are less than $25
Is that
are,
the lowest or highest you can go?
Yeah. If
Yeah.
it's 25 or
Well,
less, pursuant to the governor's order, for $25 or less, you can make them pay that right away, no payment plan.
I'd rather do that.
Well, sure. And my only question would be is how difficult it's gonna be for staff to keep track of that?
25, if you,
It's
somebody's,
the first, yeah.
a 6 month divided out by 20.
January 15th, that's over with anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Question number 2. So this, it sounds like the payment plans, if not paid in full, that'll start to appear on the January bills. So we're gonna have bills that go out the end of this week and bills that go out end of November, where if those bills are not paid, we have the authority to disconnect. Do you want to pursue that, or do you just want to push disconnections off until after January
I'd let them
1st?
establish a payment and see where they're at and start there, but it's like, that's me. If we're gonna go ahead and hit them with this axe, what do you all feel?
So, but interest and penalties will be applied to, August, November and December.
No,
Not for
not
residential.
until.
Not-
January.
Not until
January.
January. Okay, so since no interest and penalties will be applied to it, I think that it would just be too confusing to everybody to do that. I think it would just be clean to start everything.
In January.
2000, yeah, I agree.
Okay, then, let's say customer comes in and has either the 6-month or the 10-month payment plan, pays through March appropriately, or April, and then suddenly doesn't pay. Do you want to authorize the staff to work out a separate payment plan, and this is legal, you can, or, do you say, no, sorry about your luck, disconnect?
I think, go ahead.
I almost want to think at that point, you do work on disconnect because you've already set up a plan.
Well, it could be extenuating circumstances. It could be, you know, the family has a COVID and couldn't do anything. I mean, I think you leave that ability to
Absolutely.
work out something that you need to.
Yeah, I think you have to do that, because in the past, we've always been able to work out things. And these are two different things. We're trying to take care of arrearages, but life happens, and any time that you can empower staff to make decisions, I think it's good for everybody, so.
But, yeah, and I agree, and that's what we do, but we also, we don't let somebody continue to not make that. So they come in and we have a forgiveness, or, okay, you get back on this and you get, so number one, if we're under the payment plan, they miss that, and they start another one, they don't get that credit of that freebie month.
Right.
But also, if they miss 2 months in a row, they're back on, I mean, they can't just continue to come in, because we have, the mayor knows this intimately, we'll have people that try to game the system, and it's always another excuse the next month, it's always another excuse the next month. But that's where, as Mike said, you know, Cassie and our customer service reps, in the utility department are really good about knowing those folks.
And it's like almost, if you want to set up a separate payment plan, once it gets to that point, say, okay, they missed their payment, continue it out through 2021, and that could be your stop block. You got 12 months total then to fix that. I mean, I know you got your 1 or 2, 5 cases that may come up where it's different, someone, a death, or et cetera happens. And that's when you can actually look a little deeper and understand the situation. But abuse is abuse, and you gotta stop that.
And I think we look at that on a case-by-case basis.
Well, it's the case by case, because they've done 3 in a row, I'm not trying to make something that's.
Yeah.
Increase rates.
And then, Darren, do you feel comfortable to give direction on how to notify customers, what avenues to take?
We will look to use our social media outlet. We will look to putting something in the November billing that goes out, and then a separate in December that will go out separate from the billing. So there'll be within a couple of months, within a couple of weeks, we'll do something towards the middle of the month of doing. Plus, we'll work with our local media to publicize that, right? To get an article written up on that.
I know we always have, you know, people talk about separation of church and state, but if we could work with the ministerial association so that they would be able to share with their congregations, that would be very helpful. Figure out a way to do that, so somebody's not offended that we're working with the church, but, we need to be able to work with that group so that information gets out.
And definitely we can share the information with the Star Association, with the well, and with Community Action, and have that cross promotion of programs.
I'll share that.
Yes.
So what I will do at the conclusion of the workshop today is get with Todd and kind of formalize everything, and then send that out for review, so you have some we have some more questions between now and next week. I mean, you can always, if you wish, to have a special call commission meeting to take action before the next meeting on the 10th, but at this point, unless there's an urgency there, I don't know that we would have need to do that, because we're talking about November the 6th, where then this can kick in anyway, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so.
You know, I just thought of something.
Yep.
It's like a public service announcement. If we could video a public service announcement and shoot it out to different groups, people, you know, seeing somebody live, explaining the process, saying this is how we do it, and, you know, we want everybody to be able to have utilities. So this is how you can do it.
I wonder what quantity or amount of this, of the clientele that we have that's in arrears utilize the library. Because they be a big funnel to reach out to people. And use them to say they can do a probably revolving announcement within their facility.
I'll check with Mark to see what options.
Yeah, that would be a good, I mean, I think they have a large number of.
And looking at, looking at that, that community events calendar that's put, you know, that's in the newspaper, if we could send those public service announcements to those groups and ask them to link it to their Zoom calls or whatever, they would be able to do that, and that wouldn't cost anybody anything. But we could just look and see who's there and contact them and say, how can we send this information to your group?
You know, like the health department to the YMCA, those are your nonprofits for a lot of accessibility.
They're all community partners.
Uh-huh.
Senior Citizens Center,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah. In the hospital. Yeah, that'd be.
To the extent that if customers receive their bill early next week, and they have heard about this meeting through Facebook or however, and they anticipate on November 10th that the commission would take action like we're discussing, but they want to pay the bill between Monday of next week and that commission meeting, would we encourage our staff, the city staff, to mention that there might be a 10% discount, that they would only pay the 90%, or?
I think that if you say in full by January 15th, that's from this point forward, anytime between now and January 15th, you can get a 10% discount.
Yeah.
I don't, does that take official action by this body to incorporate that?
Or if not, we could track it. and-
No, I don't think it would.
Okay.
I mean, it's really it's pretty much a waiver.
Policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it seems like it would be an operating policy that we could implement.
Yeah, I think it's fair, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think anybody wants to pay it tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
What I've been waiting
Maybe when we get done, they hear it.
That's what I've been waiting for.
Mike's got his hand out.
We would have to make sure that that in the system that, because I'm sure that Brad, we would want to be able to track that for historical data, how much percentage we did,
Yeah, because I think, you know, like
so it doesn't get.
you know, like hospitals do when, you know, with patient care,
Right.
when they write things off, and have not really called like a bad debt, but more of a community credit
Right.
on their financial statements and that kind of stuff. I definitely think we ought to be able to promote and, you know, track and promote to some extent, you know, more of the community assistance that has been provided for, you know, people that do take care of the discounts or, you know, set up the payment plan and get that, you know, 1 month free. We can definitely.
And I would say that it would, I guess, looking at anything, once the bills go out, that from that point, this next bills that go out.
Sure.
Yeah, so for the bill that was received in November for October service up through January the 15th. So that would be potential of paying, somebody could get their, but it's also just, if they pay it right now, everything, so I get my bill next week. I pay everything, I don't have an outstanding balance, but I just pay my regular bill. Are we giving the 10% to them too?
They're not in arrears, they wouldn't have money.
It's just 10% on arrears, it's not on current bill.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I do have an arrears, and I pay it. And so I pay in full, the arrears, unfull, plus my current, I get that 10%.
And those are, yeah, those arrears.
It's not a
just
10%
months.
discount.
But only on your arrears,
Arrears,
not
right,
on
on
your
your
current.
arrears. Right, exactly.
And the arrears have to be just between that window of shutdown, right? Or that, what's that?
Well, I think we go back, everything,
Anything?
because you're paying 100% of all that, and so.
Well, what if I come in, this is the cliffhanger too, I've got a $2,000 bill, I wanna go on a 6-month payment plan, I get 1 month off, that's a bigger difference than that 10%.
Well, they-
So I am on,
Yeah.
I mean, that option's there, however you want to do it.
There, yeah.
okay, I just wanted to know that, 'cause that is the
Something's
best.
better than nothing.
Right.
so.
All right. When we start this program, or, when we start the
Well, he's
program,
waiting.
no, I got, anyway, we're all live. Hold on a minute.
trying to get past the forum.
Robert's Rules of Order, and I was trying to, that's not taking place, so anyway, I'll raise my hand. What I guess my point was, and I'm thinking about accounting 101, for every credit, there's a debit, or debit, there's a credit. So I was thinking, okay, I don't like to set up accounts, and do we have a way of tracking, but would it make sense if we set up another reserve for bad debt, or whatever you want to call it, and then I come in and let's say I get that 10% discount. To give that discount, I've got to debit something. I've got to charge something to give, you have to charge something to give me credit on the books.
Yeah.
And that way, can we keep it that way versus trying to use it to, I don't say allowance for capital accounts or going back against some other account? Can we set up just a regular account? And that way, a month or 2 months or 3 months from now, whoever's here is then going to be able to say, you know, we had 158
Right.
people, there's 158 entries.
Yep. Brad said that.
But it just, I've been thinking of that.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever debit, there's gotta be a credit, so I'm getting credit, you gotta charge something.
Get your teeth out.
Take those old T accounts.
That's right.
But anyway, all right, that's fine, okay.
Yeah, we
All
can
right.
do that all.
Okay,
Because I think you
We're-
mentioned
right.
that Massey will see about, and what we can do is get a discount code probably set up via local government. And then once we have that set up, then we can link that to, we can set up a
To-
special general.
to an account, yeah, to a general account, okay. all right,
Yeah, outside of the
okay.
bad debt one.
And we've been in the weeds, but that's okay.
Good question. All right. Anything else, Todd, from your perspective?
Covers it.
Okay. Anything else that we need to discuss this morning?
So we're good? You wanna tell us what we're good at?
Hey,
So
you
Todd
need
and I
to read
will.
it first, Anna.
Well, no, compare notes afterwards, and we'll push something out as a summary of this workshop, so you can kind of look it over and make sure that we captured everything that plan-wise. All right, anything else? Is there a motion for adjournment? We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brooks, second by Prue, for adjournment. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
And we're out.
Thank you.